Hello, tropical fish keepers. Welcome to another episode of Aqua Alex Live. I'm your host, Aqua Alex Cardinale, coming to you from my fish room right here in Lake Worth, Florida. How are you guys doing today? Before I begin this video, I want to thank each and every one of you who are watching today's video. Your view means a lot to me. Whether you're tuned in live or you're watching the replay of this video, I appreciate your view. So thank you very much for taking the time to catch today's episode of Aqua Alex Live. I'm going to begin by wishing all the fish keepers out there a happy and healthy 3-day weekend because it is Labor Day weekend, and I know that if we all work, which I'm pretty sure most aquarium hobbyists have a job to support their aquarium hobby. Like, for example, I work at Texas Roadhouse as a host, and I know a lot of fish keepers have jobs to sustain their aquarium hobby. So I hope all the working aquarium hobbyists have a great 3-day weekend, and I hope they enjoy Labor Day. If you have the weekend off, make sure to treat yourself. Go to the local fish store, buy some fish food, buy some fish supplies, and buy yourself a couple of tropical fish. You've definitely earned it. That's what I'm doing this Labor Day weekend. I'm working today, Saturday, but tomorrow I'm going to be going to the local fish store to buy some fish food, some prime, and maybe even some new tropical fish. And then I'm going to have a barbecue on Monday for Labor Day. So happy Labor Day weekend to all the fish keepers out there. Alrighty. So because this weekend is Labor Day weekend, I have 3 amazing videos scheduled for this weekend. And it all kickstarts today with today's episode. Today I'm going to be comparing the aquarium hobby from my teenage years until today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing another episode of Aqua Alex Live with a very special guest. My guest will be fish keeper and Little Egypt Aquarium Club founder Jeremy Stellhorn. This will be his very first video interview, and his first interview, which will be on my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale, instead of a podcast. And Monday, we have another crossover event. Monday, we have another episode of Story Time with Aqua Alex Cardinale. And I'll be talking about working with discus man William T. That's going to be a crazy episode for sure. A lot of you have been asking about him. So I'll tell you guys all about that on Monday, Story Time with Aqua Alex. All right, having said that, let's get right into today's video, and let's kick off this 3-day weekend in style. So today, I figured I'm going to take a trip down memory lane as a tropical fish keeper. I'm going to talk about entering the aquarium hobby at 12 years old. And then I'm going to talk about my aquarium hobby as I got older and living in the aquarium hobby in my teenage years. And then I'll compare it to today, me being a fish keeper at 28 years old. A lot of people ask how I got into the hobby, what it was like for me growing up as a fish keeper. So this is going to be the video that answers those questions. You will get to know me, Aqua Alex Cardinale, as a fish keeper on a personal level. Now, this video is pre-recorded because I am working tonight, which is the time this video is playing, but I will still be able to answer your questions during the live stream, and I'll be able to see and display your questions still as well. So before we begin, you can be a part of this live video. So, what was the aquarium hobby like when you first joined? Tell me about it in the comments. I want to know what the aquarium hobby was like when you first got into the aquarium hobby. Make sure to let me know in the comments. Also, how does the aquarium hobby compare from when you first started until today? Let me know in the comments. So if you're watching this live or you're catching the replay, make sure to let me know in the comments what the aquarium hobby was like when you first joined and how it compares today from when you first started. So that would be great to get some viewer feedback and viewer interaction. All right, let's get right into it. So, I first entered the aquarium hobby at 12 years old. I got my first aquarium when I was 12, but I was technically born into the aquarium hobby because my dad had been keeping fish way before I was born. He had been keeping fish since he was young. So when I was born a fish keeper. I had fish keeping and aquariums in my blood, in my heart, and in my soul. So, growing up as a young kid, I just helped my dad feed his fish and helped him with water changes. Now, my dad kept all kinds of freshwater fish, but predominantly he had monster fish, things like Oscars, Pacus, arowanas, the monster catfish like red tails, tiger shovenos, iridescent sharks. He had aggressive cichlids like Dovi, Red Devil, Managwents, Firemouth. And then he did have some smaller species in other tanks like convicts, tiger barbs, etc. So, watching my dad have all those tanks and growing up as a kid, I used to like going to the fish store with him to purchase fish supplies and fish food. And it was always special when he bought fish to go home. I remember he would buy a fish for him, and then he would let me pick out a fish at the local fish store. And that was something that meant a lot to me as a young man and a young boy. So I always cherished that, and my love of the aquarium hobby grew even more. So when I went to the fish store as a kid, I was always excited. It was like going to an amusement park for some people, but for me, I really loved it, and I really look forward to it. So I think I was like either 9 or 10 when I asked my parents if I was ready to have my very own aquarium, and they agreed that they would let me try it in a few more years. So I had to wait like 2 or 3 more years, and I had to prove that I could feed the fish and do water changes and take care of them. So I continued to help my dad, and then eventually he would let me do it on my own. And when I proved that I could do it on my own, that's when they let me have my very first aquarium. So at 12 years old, I got a 55-gallon aquarium from my dad. He handed it down to me, and it came with the tank, the stand, and the filters and heater. And I put water in, and I let it cycle for a few weeks. So the time we went to the fish store to actually get my fish. I was not sure what I was going to stock the aquarium with or what kind of fish I wanted to have in my aquarium. So I just basically looked around at the fish store and um, took notes of what I thought was interesting. But like 30 minutes later, I decided that I wanted a monster aquarium. So, not doing my research, I bought a red devil cichlid, a Oscar, a Pacu, a Pleco, a clown knife, and an iridescent shark. Those were the fish that I began the aquarium hobby with. And my dad was not with me when I bought those fish because he was at work. So it was just me and my mom. And of course, my mom is not very knowledgeable on the aquarium hobby. She really doesn't like it or care about it. So she just gave me the money and I bought the fish. So I went home and I acclimated the fish and I posted them on fish forums that I was on. So some of the younger generation today are probably going to say, "What the heck is a fish forum?" But a fish forum was like a is like what the Facebook fish groups are on Facebook. It's like a community discussion board. So anyway, um, I was getting told on that fish forum that all those fish are too big for a 55, and I was kind of being defiant. Like at the age of 12, I was like, oh, I could just keep them and grow them out and then trade them in. So that's what I did. I raised them until they got too big for the 55, even though my dad was upset that I did not do any research before I bought those fish. So that's how I got into the aquarium hobby. My dad helping him, and then buying those fish that I thought were pretty interesting looking at the fish store. So once I got those fish, I kept them for a while, and I learned the hardiness of them. All of those fish species that I got were pretty hardy. So, like after the first year, the only fish that I had of that group was the Oscar and the Pleco and the Red Devil. They all survived. I traded the clown knife and the Pacu and the ID shark to someone who had a bigger tank for a fire eel, but unfortunately the Oscar ate that fire eel. Anyway, after my first year of being an aquarium hobbyist, at the age of 13, I got my first big tank, which was a 75-gallon aquarium, and I upgraded my Oscar and Red Devil and Pleco to that tank. And this is where I started to research more about the aquarium hobby, and I joined more fish forums like Monster Fish Keepers, Aquaria Central, Pangoya Aquatics, etc. And that is when I started seeing some of the more exotic monster fish out there, like royal clown knives, Pyara, wolffish, you name it. So after that, I traded in all three fish that I had, which were the Red Devil, the Oscar, and the Pleco. And I started getting into large growing cherisons and monster catfish and the things that I like today. So that's where my obsession with silver dollars and Pacu began. I liked the red hook silver dollars and the black bar silver dollars, and I collected many species of um, Mylius, red hooks, and black bars. So at age 13, I was the silver dollar guy. Um, and at 13 years old, I had like six red hooks in a 75-gallon aquarium, and I thought they were very nice looking, very gorgeous fish. And then I got into Leporinis, which are a nice cherisin as well, yellow and black stripes, but they could be pretty aggressive. And then I had other monster fish at the age of 12, like arowanas and things like that. So at the age of 13, I did more research and I started learning about the aquarium hobby by visiting the fish forums and whatever was available to me on Google at the time. So I like to say that I am fortunate that Google was available through my teenage years for the aquarium hobby because it saved me a lot of headaches and it helped me become a better fish keeper and learn from my mistakes as a young, inexperienced aquarium hobbyist. So at 12 and 13, did I make mistakes as an aquarium hobbyist? Absolutely. The first mistake I made was putting so many large growing fish into a 55-gallon aquarium. The second mistake I made was not researching. So those are things that I think I could tell people and they can learn from it. Before you buy fish for your very first aquarium, make sure that you are doing research. Research everything, get as much knowledge as you can, and when you get advice, be sure to listen to it or take it because when I was younger, 12, 13, 14, sometimes I would ask for advice, and if the advice went against what I really wanted to happen, I wouldn't take it. And I can admit that as a 28-year-old man. Um, but when you're 12, 13, 14, you want everything to go your way, but it just does not happen to go that way. So now when I get advice, I absolutely take it because it could help you out in the long run. Even if you don't agree with the advice, there is something that you can take from it when someone offers the time to give you advice. Now, with criticism, I still have a hard time taking criticism. I don't know what it is. Some people can be harsh when it comes to criticizing others, but if it's beneficial and it helps me in the long run, I am welcome to it. All right. So now I want to talk about the aquarium hobby in my teenage years. So, a few years into my aquarium hobby, I noticed the monster fish hobby was particularly growing really well. So, a lot of people were getting big tanks and big fish. So, that being said, my dad and I picked up a 180-gallon aquarium that we got from someone off of Craigslist, and we got into large growing monster fish. So we practically kept everything from arowanas to Oscars, red tail cats, tiger shovelnose, pacu, iridescent sharks, you name it, we had it in our 180-gallon aquarium, even gars. Um, we were fortunate that we were able to keep these fish for a while, and then there was a predatory fish store that opened up that had massive aquariums that we would trade our monster fish into. I've mentioned this predatory fish store on a previous episode of Storytime with Aqua Alex Cardinale. It was run by a gentleman by the name of Nate Marion, and we all know what happened with him. But at the time, we bought fish and we dealt with him, and we traded our monster fish to him and things like that. So some of the cool species that he had in his store, which included that large Octodorus niger, the tiger shovelnose, the red-tailed cat, those all came from my dad and I. So in my teenage years, 14, 15, 16, I still had my own aquarium, which was the 75-gallon, but I also had a few fish in my dad's 180-gallon tank that my dad and I shared. So on my personal side of the hobby, 14, 15, 16 years old, that's when I found out about a fish that I really love to this day, and a fish that I absolutely have to have in a large freshwater tank, and that is the Flagtail Proctor Lotus. Now, I cannot think of a fish that I've researched more than the semi-Proctor Lotus. The Flagtail Proctor Lotus is a fish I spent hours upon hours of researching. So this fish is a gorgeous algae eater, and I have an episode of Aqua Alex Live available on my YouTube channel that you can watch and learn about the flagtail. You can actually see some videos of them. But I've seen people on Monster Fish Keepers and some of the other fish forums talking about the flagtail, and I was so intrigued that there was a charasin that resembled the salmon and a charasin that eats algae from South America, and I wanted one for my 75-gallon tank. So at that time in my 75, if I can remember correctly, because it's been so long, I had red hooks and I believe one Oscar and like a 4-line Pictus. So I was on the hunt. But none of the fish stores in my area could find the flagtail. Um, so I was like devastated. So, at that time I was so young, I didn't have a job. I wasn't able to actually get money to purchase them online like I could now. But I wasn't working at the time. So I had to patiently wait. And then when I turned 17, a flagtail actually showed up. My local fish store got like a whole shipment of them. So I went into my local fish store looking for flagtails that day, and I thought, why would they have them today? I'm probably just going to be disappointed. But I went in there and I looked around, didn't see them at first. Um, and then I did a second walkthrough, and I must have missed them the first time because they were in a tank with rummy nosed tetras. And I said, "Are those flagtail Proctor Lotus?" And then I saw the name tag, and I got hooked. And right away, I said, "I'm going to get 3 of them." And then the local fish store owner was like, "Well, you should probably get 4 or 5 because they could fight and possibly kill each other." So I ended up getting 4. And that was the group that I raised in a 180-gallon aquarium with my dad. But first, they went into my 75-gallon aquarium, and I grew them out and then put them in the 180-gallon aquarium. So I was originally supposed to pick up like a 6 to 7 inch flagtail from someone from a fish farm, but he couldn't make it down to where I was living, so I was devastated. But since I had the leftover $200, I went to the fish store and I found those 4 flagtails, which was a lifesaver for me at the moment. So, like I said, I think I was 16 or 17 when I came across my first flagtail, and I kept them for a while. So a lot of people have said that in my teenage years, I was flipping a lot of fish, keeping fish, raising them to a certain size, and then trading them or selling them and getting new fish. And that is kind of accurate. I did do that for quite a while. However, nowadays I do find myself keeping a lot of the fish that I get until they get too big for my aquarium. So overall, the aquarium hobby in my teenage years, kind of similar to what it is today, with the exception that monster fish were very popular in the aquarium hobby. Red-tail catfish were popular. Tiger shovel-nosed cats were very popular. But so were some of the more exotic monsters like Tigrinus, Durant's catfish, let's see, Peroon sharks. I've never seen a Peroon shark in person, but they were very popular in other parts of the United States back in my teenage years. Um, so monster fish were very popular when I was a teen. When I was also a teenager, like a young teenager, 11, 12, hybrids started coming into the aquarium hobby. Things like flower horns, blood parrots, stuff like that. And of course, hybridized African cichlids. My dad decided to get a couple of flower horns, and he kept them, and he enjoyed them. I I kind of liked the first flower horn he had, but as I grew up, I just I don't know. I just never got interested in flower horns anymore. There's nothing wrong with them per se. I just like the natural wild caught fish. Um, but there is a hybrid fish that did come about a couple years after that. That was the red-tailed cat, tiger shovel-nose hybrid, the red-tailed cat, marble, or the tiger shovel-nose, marble acara hybrid. Those are the hybrids that I liked. The red-tailed cat, TSN, marble acara. Um, and there was a couple other rare hybrids, like the Peroon shark times the tiger shovel-nose, the Peroon shark times the red-tailed cat, the tiger shovel-nose times the Octodorus niger. But the problem with those hybrids, short life expectancy. People don't expect those things to live very long because the Peroon shark comes from Asia and the red tail and tiger shovel-nose come from South America. And the tiger shovel-nose and Niger cat hybrid, you've got a catfish from the Pimadella family hybridizing with a catfish from the Doradid family. So you just can't really expect a long life there. So the monster hobby exploded in my teenage years. It still is kind of popular today, obviously with Ohio Fish Rescue, and people still buying like Paku and stuff, but not as popular as it was in my teenage years. So that was pretty exciting. Also, in my teenage years, besides the monsters and the hybrids, um, African cichlids were starting to take off, and they're still taking off to this day. A lot of people were getting into like the aggressive African cichlids, and I noticed my local fish stores were dedicating a big section of their live fish just to African cichlids. So this would be like when I was 16, 17, and even 18 and 19. Those sections would be a huge section dedicated to just African cichlids. And that's where I learned about the Synodontis catfish, because I would see them in the African cichlid tanks, and that was just about the only thing I was interested in, were the Synodontis catfish. Um, I have nothing against African cichlids. I think they're gorgeous, but you have to buy so many of them in order to avoid predation and then Africans killing each other. But if I were to keep an African cichlid tank, it would be Frontosias. I love Frontosia cichlids, and they're very, very, very cool. Besides African cichlids, another fish I had noticed was getting very, very popular was the Betta Fish. The Betta Fish was growing in popularity in my late teenage years. Now they've exploded where there are so many variants out there. So there's a Betta practically just for everybody. So in my late teenage years, early 20s, um, Nano Aquariums became very popular. A lot of people were venturing away from big tanks, and they were venturing away from monster fish. A lot of people were getting these smaller aquariums like 5 gallons, 10 gallons, 15 gallons, 20 gallons, and they were getting into things like freshwater shrimp, crayfish, bettas, and nano fish like small tetras like the ember tetra, pygmy corridorus, things like that. My local fish store owner, when I lived in Massachusetts, said he could see the nano aquarium hobby taking off really quickly, and it did. It did. A lot of people love the nano aquariums, and they love the smaller fish species. But I just don't see myself keeping a nano aquarium. I don't want to have to get a microscope to go look and see what's in my aquarium, because some of the fish species only get to be about an inch or two. I like to see active fish with personality. But I have nothing against people who want a smaller aquarium with smaller fish. It's a part of the hobby that I love. It's a part of the hobby that I will always support. So, nano aquariums were very popular. Planted aquariums were gaining traction when I was a teenager. A lot of people liked having live plants in their aquariums, and that is something that is still on my to-do list, or bucket list if you want to call it that. I want to eventually have live plants, but my flagtails, my silver dollars, they'd have an endless buffet on the live plants. So a lot of the fish stores in my teenage years were specializing in all different types of live plants, and a lot of fish keepers were getting into um, live plants. Now, I've noticed a trend during this time when I was a teenager where people were slowly rehoming all their monster fish in their large growing tanks. And what they did was they planted their live growing tanks. They turned their big tanks into a large planted aquarium with community fish species, which is something that I might do in the future. Not right now, but maybe in the future I'll have a large community aquarium with planted live plants. Like in my early 20s, the saltwater hobby took off. Um, I would say that a big portion of the saltwater hobby was coral. A lot of people were getting into coral, and people were probably already in saltwater when I was a teenager and young adult. A lot of people were probably already into saltwater, but it was gaining more popularity, and it was getting so popular that one of the fish stores, one of the largest fish stores in my area, cut the freshwater side down a lot to focus more on saltwater. So clownfish were getting popular, coral were getting popular, saltwater inverts were getting popular. So it was an awesome time to be a fish keeper, and I was really happy because um, I saw the potential for me to possibly become a saltwater hobbyist. And eventually I did. I did get a saltwater aquarium, and I have saltwater experience under my belt. So the aquarium hobby for my teenage years was absolutely awesome. I learned a lot about some monster fish species that I wanted to keep, and there are some that I have yet to keep, like the Peroon shark. But just recently, I got my first Armatus pariah, which I learned about in my teenage years when one of my local predatory fish shops brought them in constantly on a regular basis when he imported fish from Peru. And that's where I learned about the pariah, but I wasn't equipped to get them at the time. But now I finally have a Armatus pariah. Alrighty. So I think that covers the aquarium hobby in my teenage years. Lots of research, lots of learning, a few mistakes, but I learned from my mistakes as a teenager, and it set me up for success as an aquarium hobbyist in my 20s. So in 2013, I founded my very first aquarium podcast called Aquatic Wetline. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you probably already know about Aquatic Wetline. I worked with James Jones. I worked with Sakari. I worked with A.C.E. I worked with a couple other big brands and a couple other big guests like King of DIY, Waru Joey. So, having said that, you can go look up Aquatic Wetline and see all the episodes that I did and take a listen to them. I also hosted the Aquarium Hobbyist podcast, which was very successful as well. Those two podcasts, I learned so much because I had amazing guests. I had Sam Scales, who is a artist. He draws tropical fish species, but most importantly, he's also an aquarist at heart. So he knows a lot about tropical fish. He helped me. He helped me so much about fish that I learned a lot from him. I've also had a lot of other influential guests that helped me learn about the aquarium hobby during my time as an aquarium podcaster. Now I'm an aquarist who does YouTube videos, like this one you're watching right now. So I'm hoping to turn my YouTube into what my podcast was and make this a success. I don't want my YouTube to be monetized. I want to have fun doing it, and I want to teach people about the aquarium hobby and do it as well. So those are the aquarium hobby in my teenage years. So that brings me to my final topic, which is the aquarium hobby today. Today, the aquarium hobby is doing quite well, in my opinion. We have a lot of youngsters, people that are younger than me, entering the aquarium hobby. People are into Nano Aquariums. They're still very popular. In fact, there's a lot of people on YouTube who do nano aquascapes, decorating small tanks. There's a lot of people who are into freshwater shrimp, a lot of people into pygmy cories, a lot of people who like to plant small nano aquariums. Monster fish are still popular today. I have a monster tank with monster fish. I know a lot of YouTubers have monster fish in monster tanks, so that is pretty awesome. Planted aquariums are still a thing today. A lot of people still love planted aquariums and live plants and community aquariums. And of course, saltwater is still kicking it today. Saltwater is still popular today. Corals are still popular. Saltwater fish and saltwater inverts are still popular. And a lot of the saltwater fish are now being captive bred and farm raised from places like ORA, which is awesome. ORA does a lot of captive bred clownfish. They have a couple of captive bred tangs, like the yellow tang. I think they have a blue hippo tang, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that because I could be incorrect. So please don't quote me on that. So I know that saltwater is still popular. The aquarium hobby is growing very much. A lot of people are entering the aquarium hobby today, and I hope that with people entering the aquarium hobby, more information gets out there for them, more people help beginners. I see a lot of negative stuff on Facebook fish groups where people bash beginners for mistakes that they make, like adding too big of a fish into a small aquarium, like an Oscar, like buying an Oscar that will outgrow a 20-gallon aquarium. But instead of bashing, let's just help that person. Tell them how big the Oscar gets. Maybe suggest to them that you bring the Oscar back or buy a larger aquarium. But nonetheless, the aquarium hobby is growing, and I am really proud to see that. A lot of people are getting into it. whether it's for the relaxation of having a piece of the Amazon River in your home or a piece of the ocean in your home. I think it's awesome to see so many people entering the aquarium hobby today, or whether it's to possibly breed fish for a profit. Now, if you're doing that, let me forewarn you that it's going to take a lot before you make a profit, because if you're breeding some of the common fish species like angels, convicts, guppies, live bearers, just know that your local fish store can get them from their wholesaler for pennies. So they're probably going to offer you next to nothing. So if you want to breed something, choose something a little more exotic. Like, for example, you could choose, instead of choosing the plain convicts, maybe you could create marbled convicts or something like that. That's just my thoughts. So I'm happy to see people entering the aquarium hobby. So let's be helpful to beginners that are getting into the aquarium hobby. Let's help them out. Let's get them on the right track so that they can enjoy the aquarium hobby. If they ask for advice, be nice to them, give them friendly advice, and stir them in the right direction, because we want them to stay in the aquarium hobby. We don't want them to lose all their fish and then they leave the hobby disappointed and stuff. A lot of the aquarium hobbyists that are entering the hobby today are coming from watching YouTubers like Aquarium Co-op, like King of DIY, and all the other big names out there. Hopefully some will come from my videos. But I'm just happy to see the hobby grow today. Shout out to some of my YouTubers who are still around from my teenage years. You guys are still kicking it, and I am so proud of you. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing and how far you guys have come. I respect everybody who is showing off their aquariums on YouTube. I've been subscribed to you for so long, and I really am proud to watch some of your videos. So congratulations to all those people who have been on here for more than 10 years and are still in the tropical fish keeping hobby. Yesterday, I was browsing through my fish keeping section of YouTube and all the subscriptions that I have, and some of the YouTubers haven't been active in 5 or 6 years. So I'm kind of wondering where they went. But there are quite a few that are still kicking it and uploading today. So shout out to you guys. All right. I think that's pretty much my video today. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and hopefully you thought it was a good video. I thought it would be interesting to take a trip down memory lane and reminisce on how I became a fish keeper and share it with all of you. I had a blast today. I want to thank you for taking time to listen to or actually watch this video. And I've got some exciting episodes of Aqua Alex Live coming up, so stay tuned for that. So I've got a couple of announcements I'd like to make before I end today's video. So let's get right into it. So last night, I had the distinct honor and privilege of being a very special guest on my friend's YouTube channel. So I was a guest on Big Tank Hank YouTube channel. So please go check out the interview. I'll have it in the description of today's video, and you guys can watch it. So please check out my interview from last night on Big Tank Hank YouTube channel. I talked about how I got into the aquarium hobby, just like how I did today. And we talked about if I were to own a fish store. We talked about monster fish. And I answered questions from viewers in the live stream. So please go check it out. If you're a fan of mine, I think you'll like it. and it has a lot of good information. Tomorrow night, we'll be returning to my normal time slot, which is 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Today, I'm doing 10:30 because I have work, and I probably will get out around 10, and I want to get home and eat dinner and relax a little bit. So that's why this episode is pre-recorded, and it airs 10:30 tonight. But anyway, tomorrow on Aqua Alex Live, I will be interviewing aquarium hobbyist Jeremy Stellhorn, Little Egypt Aquarium Club founder Jeremy Stellhorn, at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, right here on my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale, also right here on Facebook. With that being said, thank you, fish keepers, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to give me a thumbs up. Thumbs up, please. All right, I will appreciate that. If you have any comments, leave them in the comments, and I will read them and react to them accordingly. And that's all I've got for you today. So thank you for tuning in. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and I'll see you tomorrow for my interview with Jeremy Stellhorn, an amazing fish keeper. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, the legendary Alex Cardinale, because I am legendary. Also, check out my major announcement video to see how you can win a $100 gift certificate to Tangled Up in Cichlids, a $100 gift certificate to Malone's Monsters, aka Aquatic Rarities, and also a gift certificate from Jeremy Stellhorn to Little Egypt Aquarium Club, which is an online aquarium supply store. Also, you can also enter my legendary subscriber contest, where you can win a $75 Texas Roadhouse gift card. And you can enter my J.R. Watkins cooking contest, if you're a cooking lover, to win a seasoning and extract basket from J.R. Watkins. Just check out my major news announcement video on my YouTube channel for more details. All right, guys, peace out and have a great day, a great night, and I'll see you on the next video of Aqua Alex Live. Enjoy those fish, and happy Labor Day weekend.